Hello, everyone. Today, I have a story that is as heart-wrenching as it is shocking. It's about the complex dynamics of family relationships and the unexpected choices people make. This is My Mom Demands I Lie to My Stepsister About Her Identity. Get ready for a tale that will keep you on the edge of your seat as we dive into the intricacies of love, acceptance, and standing up for what is right. When I was 18, my mom remarried my stepdad, who had a baby girl, and we became as close as any sisters as she grew up. I'm now 34 and she's nearly an adult. Last week she got outed at school, and to make a bad situation worse, her dad was mad at me and said she was lying for attention and called her names when she said it was for real. She came over to my apartment, distraught, and looking for some advice. I'm a lesbian and have been out for years. I told her I was so sorry that happened, which was crappy since she deserved to be able to decide who to tell and when. But she wasn't the only one outed. Her dad, he just outed himself as a bigot. He outed himself as someone who should never have become a parent if he wasn't ready to love and accept his own child. And her school administrators outed themselves as negligent, probably even in the legal sense. But overall, when I come out, I often out other people way harder than I out myself. It can be hard, but it can also feel empowering to take a torch to the darkness, light it for all to see, and burn it away. Just by being in the room and letting people tell on themselves, we're outing idiots. So I let them talk and then go tell whoever I darn well please. I let them become known as ignorant as they choose because that's a lot worse than being known as queer. I told her it was horrible her story was taken from her, but I hope that she knew it wasn't taken forever. It's her right to say as much or as little to whoever she wants. And if someone gossips, they don't know her heart. They reveal their ugliness. So don't let it eat at you. So document and record it if you want. Share it if you want or keep it just in case. But whatever you do, it's all your call. It always is. We talked well into the night and she was feeling way better afterward and ready to go home and face her dad again. Well, shortly after she went home, my mom called me. She said that my sister had come home and told her dad that they should agree to disagree about her issue and anything further he had to say about it spoke only to his character. And when he tried to argue, she took out her phone and started filming and saying, "Do tell you had a child and weren't ready to love it. Get a dog if you want something that'll come back begging when you heard it." My mom called me furious because she thought I'd coached her on what to say, which I genuinely hadn't. I told her what advice I'd given and she was angry. I even said that much and asked me if it would have killed me to say that I think your dad loves her and to give him some time to understand. I was irate to hear that, honestly, because what she said was heartbreaking and it hurts to hear my mom and stepdad didn't listen. Am I the idiot for the advice I gave? Not the idiot. Your advice was quite wise and your sister was tough to respond that way to her dad. I would remind your mother and him that love is not what you say. It's not what you feel. It's what you do. Your stepdad demonstrated clearly that he doesn't love his daughter. No amount of words will fix that. He needs to look deep and decide how to act going forward. Your reply is spot on. Sometimes parents have a hard time adjusting to their child's life looking different than they pictured it, and they might not initially be as warm and accepting as they should be, but you can tell they're trying. Unfortunately, this is not any of those. He wasn't trying. He was yelling and scaring her and rejecting her. It is 100% on him to apologize and fix this, pronto. It's not an OP sister to give him time when he's a raging idiot. The mom's response infuriated me as much as the dad's. Your mom is victim shaming, and that's not okay. Your dad's atrocious behavior is nobody's fault except his own. How much time does it take to understand I like girls, not boys? It isn't rocket science. Also, he loves her? Well, if this is how he typically expresses it, nobody needs that kind of love in their life. Yep, mom is in denial about the type of person she married, or she sees nothing wrong with his behavior and is trying to downplay it. Not the idiot. And OP, if this is a new discovery about your mom, I'm so sorry. This is really stupid. But my girlfriend, whom I've been with for 2 years now, has been a vegan for a few weeks now. I've supported her in her transitioning into it, but I love meat. She doesn't mind me eating meat when we're out with friends or by ourselves, and rarely talks about it on the way back, although she's a little distant. Lately, though, she's been expressing how it's making it hard for her to see others enjoy meat, while she's trying her best to commit to a lifestyle change, and that if I could try dropping meat for a week or two, she can get more solidified in it. I told her no, and that I have no problem with her being vegan, but I'm not going to give up meat as well. If she wants, we can stop going out to restaurants with friends and together to help her. She got angry at me, saying how she doesn't need to put her social life on hold and stay indoors all day because I won't make this compromise for her. I tried to explain that I wasn't trying to limit her freedom, and she can go wherever she wants, but if we're going together, most chances are I'll order meat. She's being very distant and angry at me lately, and my friends are telling me I'm being manipulative. Am I the idiot? Edit. I just wanted to add my girlfriend does not have any health issues that I know of, nor did she bring it up in the conversation about her transitioning or our argument. I really don't know if I can go a day without eating meat. It's my comfort food, and I've been stressed like crazy. I know it's a bad addiction/craving, but it's not the only thing I eat. I do eat fruits and vegetables, but often I just want a ham sandwich to just calm down. I don't know why, but I audibly laughed at I just want a ham sandwich to calm down. Not the idiot OP. She has a self-imposed dietary restriction. It's not a health issue that needs solidarity. She can go be a vegan on her own time, and pushing others to follow is the exact part of veganism everyone complains about. You are the idiot. As you wrote, she asked you for just a few weeks, and it shows you don't care enough about her and her wants for a better lifestyle. I'm not saying you don't care, but that's just how this looks. She isn't asking you to make a lifestyle change just for you to help with hers. I'm sure you can find other things to eat so she won't feel like she's being punished. Sometimes we make sacrifices for the people we love, and 1 or 2 meals that don't include meat won't kill you. I'm 99% sure she's also using this to ease you into becoming vegan. It's just 2 weeks. Turns into, that wasn't so bad, was it? Why stop now? You're both adults. Her choosing to become vegan is her decision. You choosing to eat meat is your decision. Her trying to force you to be vegan is being an idiot. She said she doesn't want to put her social life on hold, but what's her plan when her social life friends are eating meat? Does she plan on forcing them to stop too? I was a vegan for a year. I didn't force anyone else to stop eating meat. I, 37 female, am married to my husband, 38, and we have a daughter together, tween. My daughter is very small for her age and sometimes gets treated like a younger child. She loves to hop up in my or my husband's lap and cuddle with us on the couch or in a chair. I've thought that maybe she may be too old for that sort of thing and maybe I'm hurting her by letting her continue. Yesterday, she tried to hop in my lap and cuddle and I told her she was too old for that and to get off me. She got really upset, got off of me, and went to her room and slammed the door. She hasn't tried to get in my lap since and things are tense between us. She doesn't talk to me unless she has to and when I hugged her goodnight last night, she didn't hug me back. I feel really guilty because I obviously hurt her feelings, but I feel like she might be too old to sit on my lap. Am I the idiot? You are the idiot. She's not going to want to cuddle with you much longer, so you maybe have a year left and you're throwing that time away instead of cherishing it. Now she doesn't feel like or isn't comfortable hugging her own parents. What a terrible shame and sad thing to do to your own child, OP. Yeah, she no longer has a year. It's over. OP, you handled that terribly. You made her feel like she's done something wrong. Many people sit on their parents' lap at all ages. I've seen full-grown adults do it. She's a child. No wonder she's upset with you. How did you tell her? Did you literally say, "You're too old, get off of me"? Because if you literally told her to get off with no warning, it's no wonder why she perceived that as a rejection and is now completely confused as to what sort of physical affection is okay and what'll get her snapped at. OP, there is no age limit for parental affection. I'll start holding her when I'm too big for my mom's lap. My 16-year-old still curls up for snuggles. I'm 35 and my sister's 38. We still jokingly get in my mom's lap and cuddle. What the heck, OP? Your kid obviously loves you. Shows you love through cuddling up with you guys and feels comfortable. What you did by saying this basically makes her feel embarrassed and bad about showing you guys love. Yikes. You should feel guilty. My sister, 21, and me, 18 female, always fought when we were little. She never wanted a sibling and I didn't necessarily want her to be my older sister either. My parents tried to make us get along but stopped after a couple of years, realizing that there was no point. I've been obsessed with getting straight A's since I was a little girl. I only hung out with a few friends and spent my free time studying or playing sports throughout high school while my sister struggled in school, hung out with the wrong people, and got into some very bad stuff. This didn't make her a person but it made her make some very dumb decisions. One of her dumb decisions led to my nephew, who's now a toddler. I put aside my differences with my sister and have a fantastic relationship with him. I babysit him all the time and come to play with him while my sister sleeps. She works overnights. My issue is that my parents and sister want me to give up my car to her so that she can have a safer car since hers is old and keeps breaking down. My car is something I worked my butt off for and I really don't want to give it up. My parents bought it for me as a birthday gift since my grades had been so good throughout high school and I got into a very good college. I spent countless nights staying up till 3 a.m. studying and I gave up on time with my friends and boyfriend just so that I could keep my grades up. So honestly, I view this car as my baby and a product of my hard work. My sister and her boyfriend have been texting me all week about it. She's been telling me it's only fair since I was the reason our parents never paid attention to her and just because I got good grades doesn't mean I deserve the car. She told me I'd be putting her son in danger if I kept making them drive their unsafe car. My parents told me it was completely my decision but I felt they wanted me to give it to her. I know they most likely can't afford a brand new or even slightly used car now, especially since they're going to help pay for half of my college. I understand she needs a safer car but it isn't my responsibility to provide it for her. As I said, I worked so hard for it and I'll be left carless if I do let her have it. I want my nephew to be safe but shouldn't that be my parents' job, not mine? It is unfair for her but she chose to live that life and putting the blame on me just feels wrong. Just because I got good grades doesn't mean I deserve the car. Literally the reason you have the car. Some people. Not the idiot. It's not your responsibility to fix the consequences of your sister's bad decisions. I think your sister and her boyfriend are idiots here. They're expecting you to trade your hard-earned car for her crappy car that you'll have to sink money into every time it breaks down. This is not your responsibility to make her feel better about being ignored by your parents. She's manipulating you, and allowing her boyfriend to text you is just the manipulator of cherry on top. If I could tell you from the experience of having a screwed up sibling who got every chance under the sun, I was expected to suffer for his mistakes. Don't trade it. Don't allow her to guilt you. Don't allow yourself to dwell on it. Do graduate college. Do continue to have a relationship with your nephew. Your sister may try to leverage him against you. Expect it and just continue on with your success. Your parents are stuck here and likely don't want you to trade it, but your sister's probably a monster about it. My goodness. My sister has been texting me all week about it, and her boyfriend too. If you have time to text me, you can find a good enough job to get a newer car yourselves. She's the one who's choosing not to get a more reliable car within her own means or working on getting to those means. Stop looking at the car as the reward for good grades. The real reward is the schooling and scholarship you'll get from good grades. The car is just the icing on the cake. Yeah, at 21 years old, if she's adult enough to be a parent, then she's adult enough to figure out how to get reliable transportation without crying to mommy and daddy to force a sibling to give her their car. Heed my words. Do not give her your car. You do, and your sister will walk all over you for the rest of your lives. If she needs one that badly, she can save up or get a loan from the bank. Not guilt trip you just for existing. My wife and I had our first child a few months ago. My sister lives 2 hours away and has seen my daughter once. My wife, kid, and I made plans to travel the 2 hours to visit my sister. I thought this would be a good opportunity for my sister to visit with my daughter, and we'd go out to eat. My sister has 3 dogs who are her world and have free reign in her place, much to my chagrin at times. They're allowed on the couch, in the kitchen, and everywhere. I visited her and not sat on the couch because I don't want dog hair on me. We've had family vacations where she brought her dogs. Everything had to be dog-friendly or centric, and I didn't enjoy that trip. I've passed on future vacations. There was no point in trying to talk her out of bringing them, plus I didn't want to spend my vacation with her dogs. When we arrived, I knocked, heard the barking, and told my wife to hold off bringing my daughter inside until I knew the dogs were in another room. Sister opens the door, greets me, and says come inside. I asked whether she minded putting the dogs in another room. She pauses, goes absolutely not, and looks baffled that I would even request that. I told her I wasn't ready for my daughter to be around 3 dogs. It's only for about an hour, then we're going to lunch. After a bit of back and forth, she obviously won't put the dogs away. I just say, all right, I'm gonna head home. I help my wife put my daughter in the car and start to leave. The whole time my sister was flipping out, saying what the heck. She says she didn't even get to see her niece, says I'm an idiot, etc. So after 5 minutes at my sister's house, we drove the 2 hours back home. I had 24 texts and phone calls from her that I didn't acknowledge. So was I the idiot in this situation? You are the idiot. Why would you go to your sister's house if you don't like dogs? Of course the dogs will have the run of the place. It's their place, not yours. Sure, your sister could have been more accommodating, but she didn't have to. And now you're ignoring her after you were so rude to her. It sounds as though your sister considers her dogs to be family. She clearly loves them and treats them well. She wants them to be comfortable in their home. That's their business and their home. You're absolutely allowed to not like the dogs and not to want to be around them. But you don't get to dictate what someone does in their home. You get to do things however you want in your home, just as your sister gets to in her home. You are the idiot. Disagree. An infant's immune system is not developed. I can see him not wanting to bring a newborn into a hotbed of allergens. Also, a bit unsafe to introduce a newborn baby to 3 unfamiliar dogs with no newborn experience at all. I grew up with dogs, and whenever someone came over, baby or no baby, we'd put them in the yard, in the front room or in one of the bedrooms, until everyone was situated and comfortable with the dogs being introduced to the situation. What I don't understand is why OP never mentioned this to his sister before the 2-hour drive to her place, or just went ahead and met her for lunch at a safer place instead. If I were his wife, I'd be livid about the whole mess. So clearly everyone's the idiot here. Yeah, what the heck is going on here? OP made a mistake by not sorting this out ahead of time, but the sister had a chance to see her niece and declined. I love dogs and cats and pigs and goats, but animals are dangerous. Being a parent is scary, and it doesn't sound like OP had reason to believe these animals had any history with infants. It sounds like both sides were wrong, and there's some history here. Hopefully being siblings is important enough for them to reconcile soon. If this story touched your heart, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with others who might need to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss a new story. We'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more. Welcome to our channel. Today's story is titled, A Husband's Pain, the Betrayal That Shattered a 19-Year Marriage. Join us as we unravel the heart-wrenching tale of a devoted husband who discovers his wife's devastating betrayal after nearly 2 decades of marriage. Oh God, this whole thing is such a sordid mess, he doesn't even know where to start. He guesses some background is needed to even begin communicating the emotional impact and complication his wife's betrayal has created in their lives. Maybe his experience isn't that uncommon, but it sure feels that way to him. The first thing that needs to be said is that him and his wife are deeply involved in their religious community. This is going to be a major factor in understanding the context, so please bear with him if the details seem a little strange or too familiar. He will do his absolute best to only explain the necessary details and keep from including value judgment where the religious elements are concerned. As of today, they have been happily married for almost 19 years. They have 5 kids, their oldest is 16, their youngest 2. She has been an amazing mother to them the whole time. They live with her parents in a house that he built with her father, who is now struggling with dementia, designed to accommodate both their families, and that they helped pay for, which is going to severely complicate things once he explains how this all went down. To make sense of the current situation, though, he is going to have to start back in 2018. 2018, his wife was a teacher at a religious private school for several years to get free tuition for their kids. For the last 2 years, she'd taken 2 students, in particular, under her wing. Both kids, a girl and a boy, come from abusive homes, and both had experienced an in-affair trauma in their past from relatives outside the home. They were both falling apart and failing out. His wife decided to do what she could to help them. She tutored them, talked to their parents, and got them into counseling, and by their senior year they had both done a complete 180. By the time they graduated, they were both spending a lot of time at their home to escape the unhealthy environments they lived in. Shortly after graduation, his wife told him she felt prompted to offer them both to come in live with them. This was also when she was let go from her teaching position for unrelated reasons. They were both 18 and wanted to get out of their situations as fast as possible. He wasn't sure how he felt, but he wanted to support his wife in the good she was trying to do, so he agreed. They were good kids, helpful, and didn't cause any trouble for them. They quarantined with them through COVID and were a huge help when they all ended up getting sick. It didn't take long for them to start calling their mom and dad, and they basically adopted them into the family. In their faith, it's traditional for young men to serve a proselyting mission, which they pay for themselves, when they turn 18. Around the end of 2019, the young man left for his 2-year mission, and the young woman decided to try and reconcile with her dad, who had divorced from her mother while she was living with them. At the time, he was relieved when he left. Despite him generally being polite and helpful, he had just started rubbing him the wrong way. In retrospect, he thinks he was unconsciously already noticing warning signs that something was wrong. In particular, he was too attached to his wife. He followed her around like a lost puppy and constantly wanted to talk through his feelings about his family of origin, mostly just with her. He don't think they were having an affair yet, but it's clear their relationship was becoming too close and intense. Prior to them moving in and for some time after, they had a healthy and fulfilling affair life. Consequently, his wife was pregnant with their 5th child through most of 2019 and gave birth about a month before the AP left for his mission. It was around this time that all intimacy stopped. He didn't think too much of that because her libido tanked for several months while nursing their other kids as well. The problem this time was that it never came back. Then they started having other problems, tension in the marriage that he couldn't understand. She kept criticizing him or bringing up issues but refusing to articulate what resolving those issues would look like. Finally, after several arguments and him trying every way he could think of to resolve their conflicts, she just said they don't have that kind of relationship anytime he mentioned their intimacy issues. He started reading relationship books, especially the Gottman books, but he couldn't get her interested in reading them with him or in working on their relationship really at all. At this point, AP had been gone on his mission for about a year. Missionaries are encouraged to call home once a week, and since they were essentially his only family, he called them. He was kind to him and listened, gave advice from his own mission experiences, but he never really developed a parental-style bond with him. His wife, on the other hand, completely adopted the role of a mother to him. She fought for him, advocated for him when he had a spot of health problems, went to her extended family when he needed help paying for his mission, and became extremely offended when anyone suggested she was anything less than his mother. To be honest, he chalked up a lot of warning signs to her adopting a mother role for him. He'd had a deeply troubled youth and was dealing with nightmares. He probably has a bit of PTSD, so he didn't think it was all that strange when he was calling quite a bit more than once a week or at odd hours. She was just talking him through his emotional issues. Fast forwarding a bit, AP and wife relationship kind of normalized. AP stopped trying to initiate intimacy, which reduced their conflict. He continued trying to improve their relationship, making sure to text her during the day and doubling down on trying to follow through on things he agreed to take care of, taking her out on dates, all of which she tolerated but found exasperating. As AP's homecoming date approached, she began complaining to him increasingly about their real kids and becoming increasingly excited about AP coming home because he is actually helpful. And Opus began to dread the day AP would come home. He could see signs that it would exacerbate their relationship issues and cause problems for our kids as she showed him blatant favoritism. 2022, about 6 months before AP's homecoming, his wife asked him to look at an issue with her phone. While he was looking at it, he saw a text coming from him and noticed that the guy called her his love and called her beautiful. His heart dropped into his stomach and alarm bells started ringing loud and clear. Looking back, this was when he should have confronted her, but he didn't have time to look through her texts right then and he didn't want to make unfounded accusations. For some reason it didn't even occur to him to just bring it to her and ask, "What the hell is this all about?" He decided to wait until he could properly look at her text messages, but he didn't remember her passcode and he didn't want to tip her off that he was suspicious. Over the next couple months, he convinced himself that he was reading too much into it. If there was one bedrock of their 18 years of marriage, it was that he could trust his wife. Her whole personality is built around being trustworthy and fiercely loyal. He told himself that he was probably developing an unhealthy attachment to her because of his emotional issues and that they would address it together when he got home. Well, he got home in the last week of October and at first, he thought his fears appeared to be unjustified. He started feeling guilty for not trusting his wife. Everything about their relationship appeared to be that of a mother and son. She scolded him for inappropriate jokes or arguing with the other kids. They put him in the chore rotation with the other kids. When his mother-in-law expressed concern over her going places alone with him, she completely flipped her lid and expressed how entirely inappropriate that kind of concern was since he was practically their own child. Then, in the first week of November, she asked him to look at her phone again and gave him the passcode. He looked at their most recent text messages and saw some things that hinted they might be working toward an emotional affair, but honestly, it didn't seem as bad as he was afraid it might be. It did seem strange, though, that the message history was shorter than it should be, as if she had deleted them all recently and only had a few days worth of history. About a week before Thanksgiving, she blew up at him as they were going to bed because he had put his arm on her stomach under her shirt to snuggle the night before. She was irrationally angry about it and threatened not to let him sleep in their bed anymore if he did it again. That night he couldn't sleep, his stomach was churning, and he felt sick. Finally, around midnight, he carefully got out of bed and took her phone into the bathroom. Sure enough, now there were messages unmistakably about them having an affair in the more recent text history. She didn't have Facebook Messenger installed, but he saw that she had Facebook open on a tab in her browser. So he checked Messenger there and they had been chatting for months before he got home about how excited they were to have an affair when he got home, and to really just drive home the weirdness. Mixed in with all the affair talk are conversations about how proud of him she is for serving his mission and following all their religious cultural norms after getting home. They even make plans to attend their temple together right after talking about their orgasms. It's obvious they're completely blind to their own hypocrisy. They've constructed a delusional fantasy world where they are somehow able to entirely ignore the disconnect between what they're doing and what they believe. Opus is not making any universal claims here about right and wrong, but it's hard to understand how they can act so inconsistently with their own professed worldview and still think they are good pious people. It just blows his mind. Needless to say, reading their text messages felt like his entire world was falling apart. Knowing is so much worse than suspecting. He can't eat, he can barely focus on work, he keeps having panic attacks, and his blood pressure is through the roof. They have had such a busy holiday that he hasn't confronted her yet, but there has a weekend to themselves planned for this coming weekend, and he is going to have the conversation there. Despite thinking of almost nothing else for the past 2 weeks, he has no idea what he will say, and no idea how it will go. Despite everything, he doesn't hate her, he plans to offer the chance to reconcile on the condition that he leaves the house. She cuts off all contact, and they go to couples therapy, but he honestly don't feel confident she will choose that. This is going to be such a complicated mess if they end up getting divorced. TL, Dr. So, to sum up, his wife of 19 years is having an affair with a man who is practically our adopted son, and her former student. Also, he lives with us. She's been gaslighting him for at least a year, making him believe he was the cause of their intimacy issues. They already have 5 kids, the youngest being only 2 years old. They live in a house that they built and own with her parents, who live with them. And somehow, despite extramarital affair being extra taboo in their faith culture, they're both convinced they are completely good, pious people despite going at it like rabbits. He will be confronting her this weekend and he have no idea how it will go. FML, oh wow, thank you everyone for your responses and advice. He has already taken screenshots of her texts and have them stored in his OneDrive vault for safekeeping. He has seen a lot of advice to see an attorney and to get a paternity test. He has been thinking long and hard about the possibility that his youngest isn't his. His conclusion is that he doesn't care. She just turned 2 and she's the brightest thing in his life right now. She's his daughter no matter what. He has talked to an attorney briefly on the phone, but just to make sure AP can't demand paternity rights if she does turn out to be his. And apparently that's not a likely concern in his state because she's over 2 now and his name is on the birth certificate. He does realize, though, that he will have to get her tested eventually because if she's not his, she'll need to know for medical reasons. He is not looking forward to that. As to whether he should offer reconciliation, the advice not to for now makes sense to him. His question is, should he still confront her this weekend or should he go straight to blowing everything up? He can't hate her and he have no desire for revenge, but he also won't be her cuck and he won't lie down if she goes on the attack. He still has his own self-respect and he have to think of his kids. Okay, well, the panic attacks are back. Some of you have made some excellent points about this amounting to abuse and manipulation of the AP. For clarification, it seems unlikely that he would have been underage when they started having an affair. He is turning 21 this month, but he is going to have to dig into that, no matter how much it hurts. So, here's his rough to-do list for the short term. Get an actual consultation with an attorney, maybe more than one. Open a new bank account and change his direct deposit over to that. Get a paternity test for his youngest and discuss the results with his attorney if she's not his. That would move their earliest active affair to at least February of 2019. Still post-graduation, but not by much. Change a crap ton of passwords and make sure her email is not listed as the recovery email. Confront them both with her parents in the room all at once. Kick at least him and possibly both out that night if her parents will support me where she's concerned. They will be on board with kicking him out, depending on her reaction during the confrontation. File for divorce immediately, alternatively if she is remorseful and immediately agrees to the requirements. They begin the reconciliation process. Sign up for counseling because he is going to be a complete wreck. He is antithetical to a scorched earth kind of guy, so what he must do here is going to be extremely hard for him. His state is a no-fault divorce state, so unless there is a compelling reason not to, they will want to do 50/50 across the board. He is okay with that in principle, but that will depend a lot on whether she goes after me and what his attorney says once he has discussed the full details of the affair. There may be factors he is not aware of that would affect the state's judgment. He asks if he is missing anything from his immediate to-do list. Thanks again for all the amazing advice here. He appreciates everyone weighing in and he is reading everyone's comments obsessively, so please keep them coming. Comment, you need a VAR with you and you need to tell a couple of friends exactly what's going on. And you need to have written out with an attorney what should happen to your estate if something happened to you. Original poster, forgive his ignorance, but he is not sure what a VAR is. It's not coming up in the abbreviations. Comment, no. WS is immediately remorseful when confronted. She may be regretful. She will certainly be angry, defensive, and covering her arse. Do not offer reconciliation. It's a process that takes years, and you can't begin that process until you have the entire truth. And you must have a wife who is completely honest and willing to work on becoming a safe partner. A VAR is a voice-activated recorder. Original poster, thanks for the clarification. It's good to know what to expect. Also, to everyone concerned for his safety, it's amazing how close one can feel to a new community without knowing any of you personally. He appreciates the warning and will take precautions to make sure they are safe. That's partly why he decided to have the conversation with her parents present. But the VAR is also an excellent idea, as well as making sure a friend knows when and why he will be having the conversation. Hi everyone, just checking in. You've all given him a lot to think about. Right now, he is just processing everything he have read here and waiting to see a few attorneys this week before he makes any rash decisions. As to the question of affair, he is sure he will have a better idea once he has talked to an attorney. But from where he is at now, the evidence doesn't seem to point to that. And even if there was affair, he doesn't see how he prove it. He is not inclined to make any unsupportable accusations to the family judge if it would just make him look vindictive. He is sure they hear all kinds of crazy accusations on the regular, most of them complete fabrications. Also, one point of clarification, the girl they took in is not his sister and she no longer lives in their home. She went home to try and build a relationship with her bio dad after he divorced her bio mother who was emotionally abusive. They are still on good terms with her and encouraged her to try and reconcile with her dad when she expressed interest. She's leaving for college soon and looks to be on track for a good life. The AP's life, on the other hand, is probably ruined no matter what the outcome of the next few months turns out to be. Comment, I think the concern here is what kind of liability might your wayward wife face if things blow up. Could she end up facing criminal charges? Might the AP decide to sue her in civil court? Right now, your finances are tied to hers, so I don't think it's much a matter of what you might use in a divorce scenario, as much as how much potential liability she costs to your family's financial security. While I agree that she has predated upon the AP and taken advantage of his immaturity, that's not something you can change. You don't have a magic wand or a time machine. What you can do though is make sure that you've protected your assets as best you can. You've got your own children to consider and their quality of life. Original poster, he completely agrees. Which is why, as painful as it is, he is waiting until he has talked to the attorney before he tips his hand. When he moves it will be with a plan, informed, and to win. His kids are his highest priority, and he can't afford to lose everything because he acted rashly. This situation is more complex than most and he need to be playing for keeps. And to those who are concerned about AP being near his kids, he doesn't believe he is a clear and present danger to them or him at the moment. The danger will come when he has upset the status quo, and he have to be prepared and have a plan in place to minimize everyone's risk once he does that. He will only get the benefit of surprise once, and he have to use that to take the initiative and keep it. Comment, how are you holding it together and maintaining some semblance of normalcy during this purgatory you are living in? Surely your wayward wife must intuit or suspect that something, possibly the jig, is up. Original poster, he has ADHD and have dealt with social anxiety for most of his life. He has a lot of practice pretending to be fine when he is not. She's noticed that something was wrong once or twice, but he just blamed it on work stress and have a pretty good handle on himself for now. Lots of mindfulness meditation and breathing exercises in the bathroom when he can't deal. Pouring his attention into the kids helps, too. Hopefully, have his ducks in a row before this weekend, then he can start the process for real. Comment on your comment on I'll only get the benefit of surprise once, and I have to use that to take the initiative and keep it. My redo is to reframe that to something like, I'll focus on what is best for me, and keeping that focus will enable me to have the initiative as long as this goes on. Right now, the consensus is to hold off confronting until you know what you're dealing with. Surprise may get you some revelation that are helpful, but you'll be able to keep the initiative by focusing on achieving your goals. What do you want that you can get? Are you open to R? If your wife goes off with this poor guy, are you willing to wait? If she wants to come back a few months later, would you be open to that? Do you want a quick D? All of those can be honorable, effective courses of action. But you have to choose which one you'll adopt, and you have to follow the course honorably, and you have to make it effective for yourself. In my opinion, you need to act pretty quickly, because it's odds on that your W is hurting this guy because getting it out into the open is good for you. But you don't need to decide on what confrontation means to him yet. It may take time for you to make those decisions, and your wife's response might affect your choice. Maybe she'll defend herself and her actions and her true love. But what if she responds, what have I done? How could I have taken myself so far off course? The decisions about him will affect decades of your life. It makes sense that they're not easy choices, and it makes sense that these decisions take time. But attempting to separate your wife from this guy is something that is best done at SAP. Comment, in my honest opinion too, much weight is placed on evidence or proof. It's enough that you are convinced. It can help if you have enough to convince stakeholders to the family such as your or her parents. But at the end of the day it's enough that you are convinced, unless infidelity was to factor in divorce. In that case you need an attorney's advice on what is considered proof enough, and then work towards getting that level of proof. It's not common that infidelity factors at all in divorce though. It's not as if you state she's having an affair and if you can't prove it, she isn't. She can deny all she wants. All that's really needed is that you are convinced. This is quite important. We have had instances here where everything shouts affair. Just like your case does. Everything you have so strongly indicates your wife and the OM are having an affair. Now, imagine you confront her with her parents in the room. For a minute let's say she denies, and when you pull out the text she minimizes and says they are fantasy. And that actually nothing ever happened. It's not as if her parents are the jury and they get to decide if you or she wins. It's not as if they decide she wins and that makes you crazy and you have to settle with their decision. It's not as if when asked by concerned friends and colleagues that you have to pull out pictures and DNA evidence. It's enough that you are convinced. If you are convinced she's having an affair, well, that's it. That's all that's needed. Is reconciliation possible? Well, yes, but it's not necessarily what you should do. What you do next is dependent on several factors. One of them being what you want, but no less what you are offered. Like if she denies the affair, you can't reconcile. If she isn't willing to reconcile, you can't reconcile. If she were to fess up and convince you that she wants this marriage, then you could reconcile. But only if that is what you wanted. There is nobody holding a gun to you demanding you reconcile. Not any more than you should allow anyone to hold a gun to you demanding divorce. Fortunately for you, the first steps after confrontation are basically the same irrespective of R or D. Personally, I think we BS often try to set too many conditions for our spouse on confronting. I think we should focus on what we can control, and that's us and our actions. A typical confrontation speech would be something like, wife, I have discovered that you are having an affair with OM. I have enough evidence to make this totally irrefutable and know that you two have had an affair multiple times, shared intimate texts and messages, and that you have broken the marital vows repeatedly. I envision growing old with you but have realized that there is something immensely worse than losing you, and that is sharing you. I don't share my wife. I hereby relinquish any expectations or demands I can make on you as a husband. In my eyes you are no longer bound by the expectations of a wife, not any more than I am your husband. There is a legal procedure that needs to take place and that procedure controls how we divide assets, arrange custody and all that. There is no rush per se, so I will start that procedure once I am emotionally in a better place to do so. You are free to be with OM. You can date, move into his bed, go to temple together, make plans for the future, but not as my wife. It would be respectful to not be too obvious around my home and our children, but in my mind, you really aren't bound by your vows as my wife. If you want to have any chance of saving this marriage you need to show me with words and actions. I need the absolute truth down to the detail I demand. I need total accountability and total NC with OM. There is no guarantee, but a basic principle in my life is I don't share my wife. And then you go and watch TV or wax the car or whatever. You have stated what you are going to do and what she can do if she wants the marriage. You then control your speed depending on her actions. Depending on local laws I'm fairly certain you can legally demand OM leaves the house. This is not necessarily straightforward though. If he has a legally registered residence in the home, you might not be able to kick him out per se. That's something you need to clear with your attorney. Same with your wife. Be very careful here. If OM has a legal residence in the home, if your wife has one too and if her parents are owners, definitely confirm your options with an attorney. The living pattern might add complexity to any future steps. Don't expect her parents to favor you over her if you do decide to divorce. Friend, you have options. They might not be nice options, but you have a lot of control over how you play the crappy cards you were dealt. Original poster, thanks for the advice. That seems like a healthy way to approach this mess. He was open to reconciliation at first, but as he progressively comprehends how genuinely destructive her behavior has been, he doesn't know anymore. It's reassuring to think you don't have to know for sure before the confrontation. Thanks for your comment as well. You provide some much-needed perspective. You will try to keep everyone's comments in mind as he proceeds. This forum has just been a fantastic support as he figures out what he wants and need to do about this situation. Hopefully, he will have more to report soon. Thanks to everyone for all your— Welcome back to channel, where we delve into the complexities of relationships and the bonds that tie us together. Today's story is one that will shake you to your core. It's titled, Caught Cheating, Husband Hires Private Investigator, Shocking Footage Revealed. Get ready to experience a tale of trust shattered and the pursuit of truth, as we uncover the secrets that threaten to tear a marriage apart. Tell something was up, but I didn't press. She said she was tired. So I went with it over the next few days. I started noticing that she was on her phone quite a bit, even around dinner time. I would ask why is she texting a lot these days? And she would tell me that she was in a group chat, talking with her girlfriends about the girls' night out they had and planning another one. I didn't think much of it at the time. She was constantly texting her girlfriends. It was nothing new, but looking back now, I realized she was probably planning something with them that she didn't want me to know about. My wife works as a consultant for a big firm and would always come home stressed. So I didn't mind her having a night out with her girlfriends every so often. But now she is talking about another girls' night out. This will be the second girls' night out coming up in less than 3 weeks. The bad thing is, these women she hangs out with, 4 of them are all single. She is the only married one of the bunch, which in my opinion is not a good thing because it means she is the only one with something to lose. The other women are footloose and fancy-free. I don't want my wife to be a cheater, but I also don't want to control her or tell her what she can and cannot do. So, her second girls' night out came and went. I told her the next day that she needed to be careful and make sure her single friends didn't cause her to fuck up her marriage. She looked at me funny, but didn't say anything. After work one day, I stopped by my parents' house and talked to them about my frustration with my wife participating in these frequent girls' night out parties. I told my mom that the women she hangs out with are all single and none of them have anything to lose. My mom looked at me and said, well, I don't see anything wrong with a girls' night out, but I do see a problem with a girls' night out with only single women. My mom said she is playing with fire. Then my dad chimed in and said, yeah, if I were you, I would put my foot down and tell her that's enough. He also said the fact that she keeps going out to party without you is a major cause for concern. Then my mom jumped in again and said she did a girls' night out with her friends. 3 times in the 40 years, my parents have been married, but my mom's girlfriends were all married. Mom said they were home by 11 p.m. They didn't stay out later than that. I thought about what they said on my way home and I decided they were right. I needed to nip this in the bud before it got out of hand. When I got home, I talked to my wife about it and she got angry saying I was being controlling and didn't trust her. I tried to explain that I wasn't trying to control her. I just wanted her to be careful because I loved her. She didn't want to hear it and went to bed angry. The next day she left for her girls' night out. She didn't even come home from work. This was her 3rd girls' night out. I did not even know about this one. My wife didn't get home until after 2 in the morning. I didn't say anything. I just waited up for her. I pretended to be asleep. When she entered the bedroom, I decided I needed to find out what was going on and why she wanted to leave her family and party with her girlfriends on the way to work the next day. I called a friend of mine and asked him, did he still have the contact information for the private investigator he used for his company? A little backstory. My friend had an employee who was trying to get workman's comp for having an accident on the job. His employee was complaining after the accident that he couldn't come to work. So my friend promptly hired a private investigator. Turns out he wasn't injured at all. He was playing golf, played in a flag football league. Needless to say, he dropped the workman's comp claim. My friend gave me the number of the private investigator he used. He then asked me, was everything okay? I told him I wasn't sure. And I indicated that I think my wife is doing something she wasn't supposed to be doing. I said, she has been going out and doing these so-called girls' night out parties. My friend then asked me what made me think my wife was cheating. I told him about the 3 times she had gone out recently and stayed out until after midnight, coming home, smelling of alcohol. I also told him that when I confronted her about it, she got angry and defensive. He then said to me, well, it sounds like you have enough. I called the private investigator and set up an appointment to meet him after work. I met the private investigator and he asked me what I wanted him to do. I told him I wanted him to follow my wife and see what she was doing when she went out on her so-called girls' night out. The private investigator told me his fee was $100 per hour. And I said, I didn't care. I just wanted to know what my wife was doing. I gave the private investigator a picture of my wife. I told him what kind of car she drove, where she worked and what hours she worked. The private investigator told me he would start following my wife the next day. I waited impatiently for the private investigator to call me and tell me what my wife was doing. Finally, after 3 days, he called me. The private investigator told me to meet him after work. He had some footage to show me. He showed me footage of my wife leaving work in different clothes that day. On that day, she didn't leave for work in those clothes. She changed at work. He followed her to a bar. He went in and noticed she went to a table with a bunch of women, which were her girlfriends. They were there for about 2 hours. Then they all left. He followed them to a house about 15 minutes from the bar. He noticed a guy answered the door and they all went in. The private investigator was dressed in black. He tells me that at night, it helps him get closer for his surveillance. He walked up to a window at a slight distance and noticed all the girls were dancing, grinding on a few guys. And my wife was in the corner with some guy. He was squeezing her butt and she was kissing him. After that, he looked at me and told me, "I think you have enough to do what you need to do." He handed me this flash drive and he told me he will keep a copy just as a precaution. After meeting with the private investigator, I went home and cried. I couldn't believe my wife of 9 years had cheated on me and she was still doing it. I wanted to confront her, but I didn't want to show her the footage. The next day I got up and left for work without saying anything to my wife. She sent me a text on the way to work, asking why I didn't say anything to her. When I left, I did not respond to the text. When I got to work, I made it a point to call a few divorce lawyers to see what I was dealing with and how I could protect myself. I also started looking for a place to stay because I knew there was no way I could stay in the house with my wife. I will miss the boys, but their mother did this. I was absolutely devastated. My whole world had been turned upside down and I didn't know how to fix it. The only solution was divorce. I wasn't going to try and fix our marriage. She wants the single life. She can have it. I had to be strategic because I didn't want the boys to be alone while their mother went out on her girls' night out. I live in Massachusetts, which is a no-fault state, that much I know. So divorce should be pretty easy. When I got home that night, my wife was home sitting on the couch with the boys. I walked in and she asked how my day was. And the boy smiled at me and said, "Hey Dad," I wanted to cry, but I had to hold it in. A few hours go by and everyone is winding down. My wife puts the boys to bed and comes downstairs and asks me if I want to watch a movie with her. I said, "No, I don't think so." She then said, "Okay, I'm going to bed." I waited until she was in bed to go upstairs and get my stuff and leave. I waited until she fell asleep before I left the house. I didn't have anywhere to go yet. So I went to my parents'. It was late. My dad was worried and asked me, was I okay? I told him I had something to show him. We sat down at the dining room table. I pulled up the footage that my private investigator compiled and showed my dad what the private investigator found. And my dad was in disbelief. My mom came downstairs and I showed her too. They were both speechless. I told them I was moving out and getting a divorce. They didn't say anything to try and stop me. I'm sure they were disappointed, but what could they say? My wife had cheated on me and I was done. I stayed at my parents' house that night. The next morning I got up, I sent my boss a text and told him that I would be coming in late. I was honest with him and he didn't have a problem with it. After talking to my boss, I noticed my wife had sent me hundreds of text messages, wondering where I was and why I left last night. I didn't respond to any of them. I found an attorney and filed for divorce based on the grounds of adultery. And I moved out of the house. I went back to the house when I knew my wife wouldn't be there. And I left a note on the kitchen counter. I told her that I had filed for divorce and that she could find me at my parents' house if she needed anything. After work, I drove to my parents' house and I saw my wife's car parked in the driveway. I went inside and I saw my wife sitting at the kitchen table crying. She asked me why I filed for divorce and I slowly pulled out my phone and showed her the footage and told her that I did not deserve this. I didn't deserve the way you were treating me. We sat and talked for a while and we both decided it would be best if we divorced. I told her I didn't want the house. We were renting it anyway, so she could have it. She makes enough money to pay for it. At the divorce hearing, it was amicable. The judge gave me 30 days to get the rest of my things. I didn't go after her for alimony. I made more than her and I didn't have to pay child support. She was getting that from the kid's father already. We are both the same age, 33, and the boys are 7 and 8. It was heartbreaking because I loved those boys like they were my own and I was their father in every way, but biologically. My job offered me a position out of state and I took it, changed my phone number. Only my parents and a few friends have my new number and started a new life. It's been almost a year now and I'm doing well. I've started dating again and I'm in a much better place emotionally. My friends have told me that my ex-wife was asking about me and she even tried to reach out to me on social media. But I have no desire to speak to her or see her again. I'm glad I made the decision to move on with my life. And I hope you can do the same if you're in a similar situation. Thanks for reading. I have never shared anything about my life on these forums, but this was heartbreaking for me. I still struggle at times, but one day at a time is how I am dealing with it. Thank you for joining us for this emotional journey. If you've been moved by today's story or have your own experiences to share, please leave a comment below. And remember, no matter how difficult the truth may be, it's always better to face it with courage and integrity. Stay tuned for more heartfelt stories. Greetings, my dear viewers. Today, I invite you to delve into a tale of love shattered by betrayal, trust eroded by deception, and hearts torn asunder by infidelity. Join me as we explore the harrowing journey of a husband who uncovers his wife's unfaithfulness and the painful aftermath that follows. Welcome to Caught My Wife Cheating, Unraveling the Betrayal, a story of deception and heartbreak. She all but stopped messaging me during the day. And when she did, it was short things about dinner or other trivial items. She started going grocery shopping alone, needed her time. This is something we used to do together. She has always gone running after work and on weekends, but now with it getting too dark and cold, her running on the weekends have turned into 3 to 4 hour events. She moved out onto the couch saying I moved around too much and she couldn't sleep. The couch then became the guest bedroom. That's when I finally confronted her. She said that she was texting the other man because he had been open about his mental health issues. She has struggled with anxiety and depression for a while, but we had it under better control with counseling and medication. She even initially told me she was going to talk to him, and because I knew him, he goes to our church and is our insurance guy. I foolishly thought that would be okay. On November 14th, I asked her if she still loved me and she said yes, but she hasn't been happy for quite a while and it's been a difficult year and she wasn't sure if she wanted to work on the marriage or not. I told her that I noticed that she hit her phone. Anytime I came into the room, that's when she told me who the other man was. She said that they texted and met sometimes for lunch, but he was just a friend. She said it over and over. As I asked questions about him, I got angry and incredibly sad at the same time and told her that it ceased being just friends when she felt like she had to hide it from me. I asked if she talked about me to him. She said she did. I told her that her affair hurt almost as bad as if she had slept with him. Over the next few days, I just could not shake the feeling that there was more going on than she told me. It's difficult because she says she doesn't want to work on the marriage. I looked at phone records and they call each other first thing in the morning. And during most lunches, then again, as soon as she gets off work, the phone call started on October 10th. So at least a month, she doesn't text him because they use Signal and I don't have access to her phone. Plus it deletes the messages as soon as you send them. Anyway, I talked to her again on Sunday and she said that they only talk and hug. I don't believe her. Maybe it's because of the lies and the broken trust, but I just feel like more is going on than she is telling me. She's currently in the process of finding a new place to live. She was going to wait until January, but I told her last night that I wouldn't be her plan B and that if she was waiting to move out to spare my feelings, to not worry about that. She put a deposit on a place today during her lunch hour. In Virginia, we must be separated for 6 months before we can divorce. As soon as she moves into her new place, that will start the separation time. I've left messages with a couple of divorce attorneys this week, but because of the holiday, they are slow getting back to me. I think I want to split amicably if possible, but I also want to know how far she has taken it. I feel this need to know if it was just an emotional affair or if it was a physical affair. Does it really matter though? Do I push it where she doesn't want to work on our marriage or just let her go and move on with my life? We've been married for 18 years and luckily have no children. I just feel so lost right now, lightheaded and in a fog. I appreciate any advice. Second story is called, Caught My Wife Cheating, found out 2 months ago. I've been lurking on this site for a month now and finally decided to post. Short story is that my wife and I have been married since 1994. And I found out about 2 months ago that she has been engaged in a physical affair with a friend of ours for about 6 months. We are both in our mid to late 40s, both in decent shape. And we have a son who has grown and on his own. I will start off by saying that I have not been happy in my marriage for a good 15 years or so. Around 2005, she had an affair with a coworker. I was devastated. I busted her. She did all the crying and hemming and hawing, promising never to cheat again. I kicked her out for a couple of months. And we went to a crappy marriage counselor who basically blamed me for all her bad choices, thinking I was at fault for it all. I sucked it up and we went on and basically buried the whole thing. She was relieved and seemed happy with me, but I kept my mouth shut and just lived with it because I thought that is what a man was supposed to do. Looking back, that year was the year my soul started dying. Now I am relieved, almost ecstatic. You all do not need to console me because I am not in pain. If anything, I am happy because now I can divorce my cheater and get out of this fake marriage without having to feel like the bad guy or that I am in the wrong. She has given me the reason I have needed for 15 years to finally escape without my friends and family, making me out to be the villain. I can say with confidence that I have been a good husband to her all these years. Am I without any faults? No, of course not, but I have never done anything over the past 15 years to warrant this treatment. She knows full well that if she were caught again, then that would be it. Which leads me to believe this is an exit affair on her part. And she wants me to bust her. That is the feeling I get. Maybe I am wrong, but I have a hard time thinking she is that stupid to cheat again after what we went through before and expect me to forgive her again. So, over the past 2 months, I have gathered all the evidence I need to divorce her. I have not confronted her yet or had her served. I do want to eventually expose her to our friends and families in order to protect my own reputation. But I have some questions. 1. Should I wait until after the divorce is final to expose her to our families and the other guy's wife? If I expose now, word might get back to her employer and I don't want her getting fired. I made the stupid mistake of marrying and living in a state where alimony is mandatory. So, if she gets fired, then I'm on the hook. She makes more than me. If she doesn't lose her job, I could ask for alimony, but I won't. 2. How do I tell my son? He was just 6 when she cheated the first time. And even though he couldn't understand at the time, he saw what it did to us. And I think he was affected by our separation. He will be pissed at her, but I don't know any reason why I should lie to him. 3. Should I ask her to move out or try to keep things amicable until the divorce goes through and just live together? I want to keep the house, and in my divorce petition, I state that I will buy out her share of the equity. I want to start dating again soon. Is there anyone here who went through a divorce where you live with your spouse, but dated other people, or is it best to wait? Third story, caught my wife cheating. She is bipolar. Iguish. I really could use some advice. My wife is bipolar and has suffered lots of abuse growing up, including abuse by a family member and abuse by her abuser ex-boyfriend who is in jail. I am a private investigator and task force agent. And I missed all the signs. Long story short, we met online as she was unconsciously seeking for a white knight experienced in helping abuse survivors and ended up falling for me within a month. And so did I. Due to COVID, our meeting in person got delayed for months. And after we married, I discovered she was an escort, sugar baby for 3 years. She started on it as to get back at her abusive boyfriend. And also because she was conditioned to be objectified since she was little. She basically stopped doing it around 4 months before we met in person. And we married 3 months after meeting many times. I was hurting because she disappeared. And now I know why she has cried, apologized, and says she feels lots of hate, shame, and disgust towards herself. I believe her. I went to the finish line and found all kinds of texts, emails, hard evidence on her emails, drives, and even some profiles. She had at some sugar baby sites. Oh boy. I regret seeing some things. She was very sloppy and hiding stuff. And once I got access to one email, the Pandora box opened. She is a student. And before I supported her financially, she had no income and no prospect of getting a proper job. The lies and the denial, the way she gets defensive is really tough on me. I offered her financial help before we met and she didn't accept it. So, as you can see, she is not after my money. Not that I have much. How do I avoid lashing out? Our relationship and arguments can get dicey in seconds as she is bipolar. And I'm what's known as quiet borderline personality disorder, in which I suffer all the pain and lash at myself, not at her. Not a great combo, but the love we have for each other is gigantic. It's been only 1 month since I found out and I already forgave her. But, at the same time, I have not forgiven myself over not seeing the red flags. Now, I feel I have to be extra vigilant with her. And she has agreed to disclose all her communications with me as I have. And we basically don't leave any room for anyone to be meddling in our relationship. I want to trust her again, especially since it happened before the relationship was real. But, for me, it felt real since day one. She says she only did it once or twice a month to finance her studies. But, I don't know, most days I believe in her good nature and other days, I worry a cheater is always a cheater. I also feel that because it happened before our first kiss, I am being a bit oversensitive, but, I was faithful for that whole year and I suffered intensely. Anytime I remember those days she disappeared, the pain comes back almost undiluted. It seems I'm on the final stages of grief. I've had a hard life and I get over stuff quick, but, I still feel traumatized and with a little PTSD. What's the best way to disengage? When our arguments start, they go from 0 to 1000 in 2 seconds. And then the blame game starts. When we are good is the best, but when we are arguing is hell, too intense, too much fire, and both of us get super hurt very quick if the other is not careful. If this story touched your heart, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with others who might need to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss a new story. We'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more. Hello, everyone. Today, I have a story that is as heart-wrenching as it is shocking. It's about the complex dynamics of family relationships and the unexpected choices people make. This is, my mom abandoned me for her new husband, but she came crawling back after 6 years. Get ready for a tale that will keep you on the edge of your seat as we dive into the intricacies of love, acceptance, and standing up for what is right. So, sit back, relax, and let's dive into this captivating story. My husband and I have been married for 6 years. At least 5 of those have been almost no contact with his mother. I don't know the whole story, but his dad passed away when he was young, and his mom remarried a man who was abusive to him up until he moved out. He tried to tell his mother for years, but she couldn't believe it. Finally, it got to the point that, for his own well-being, he just couldn't be around her anymore. This week, after years of silence, she shows up at our doorstep. She said she tried to call, but we have her blocked, so obviously it didn't go through. She was in tears and started crying about how her husband had trashed her house and left her, and she realized her son was telling the truth, how she didn't have anyone, all that crap. She begged to talk to my husband. I said she had some balls coming to our house to cry after throwing her son to the side for a disgusting predator until that stopped working for her. I said she made her bed. Now's the time to lay in it, and it wasn't going to be at my house. She was almost hysterical when she left. Her coming to the door put my husband into a panic attack. He's been too depressed to get out of bed since. I really don't care for that woman, but when I replay it in my head, I feel absolutely terrible. Berating someone in tears never feels good, and now I think I just might have made things worse. Should I have done something differently? Am I the idiot for telling my mother-in-law she gave up her family and it's fault she's alone? Not the idiot, you're a queen. She showed up because she wanted something, nothing more, nothing less. She would have soaked you and your husband for free room and board and asked for money, and likely would have ended up reconciling with her husband and done the, he's sorry, let's let go of the past and stop holding a grudge, self-justifying monologue. Opie, you likely saved your family thousands of dollars down the road too. Bingo. I picture Opie in a long robe and a pointy hat yelling, you shall not pass, to her mother-in-law. Opie did to mother-in-law, but mother-in-law should have done to her new husband years ago. There's a special place for people who choose their romantic partners over their own children. Dear old mom made her choice. And sadly, Opie's husband has to bear the brunt of the consequences. Opie should not even have a shred of guilt for telling the mother-in-law off. Mother-in-law should get back on her broom and ride off into the sunset. How dramatic. She was in tears and started crying about how her husband has trashed her house and left her. And she realized her son was telling the truth, how she didn't have anyone. All that crap. Look at what she said. It's not about how she's sorry for what she did to your husband by enabling his abuse. It's not about how your husband has suffered due to her choices. What's missing is anything real about her son. It's all about her. Her house got trashed. She tried to play you, manipulate you, and get you to join her pity party and become her new support system. You did the best you could in a bad situation. That wasn't your fault. The woman had your address. That means she could have written a letter. She didn't. She didn't ask by letter first if it was okay to meet up someday somehow. She did an ambush because this was about her wants, her feelings, and her trying to get something from the two of you. What you did was primal and rightfully protective. Now ask what your husband needs. I learned that no matter how terrible a parent treats a child, that now grown child still craves approval from that parent. It was difficult for me to understand. Find out what he needs. That's what matters now. If your husband needs extra therapy sessions to process and cope with this, help set them up. Good luck. I hope mother-in-law never shows up again. Alright, so my husband and I are on vacation with our toddler son. Well, technically my husband is a stepdad. The husband's parents came as well. I had no issues with this. We got along fine. Anyways, we were all walking around enjoying our time when we saw some teen and young adults dancing really well. My son loves music and dancing, so he was excited and practically begged us to watch them perform. They were great, extremely talented, and my son enjoyed it. The song and dance were pretty feminine, but two of the dancers were male. My husband and I thought nothing of this, and neither did my son. But my in-laws were put off. My father-in-law looked a little disgusted, for lack of better words, and he was especially concerned when he noticed my son trying to mimic their dancing. On the other hand, my son was so hyped up and the dancers noticed, I guess, so they thanked him and even engaged with him a little bit. It was a lovely sight. Not even gonna lie, it might have been the best part of the vacation. I've never seen my kid that happy, haha. But after we left and sat down at a restaurant, my father-in-law started ranting about the gay BS he had to witness. My husband told him to relax and not swear in front of our son, but father-in-law was angry. We're being brainwashed and allowing our child to become one of them. I rolled my eyes and went, boys that dance? How scary. My father-in-law was like, that's not what I mean. So, I replied with, my bad, boys that dance with glitter on, even scarier. I'm traumatized. I then asked my son if he was traumatized, which he obviously didn't understand. So, he just giggled and my father-in-law got up and left saying that he refused to be treated like a fool in public. Mother-in-law whisper yelled at me after saying I just ruined the trip and should have kept my big mouth shut. My husband didn't care and said his dad had it coming, but it did ruin the trip. My father-in-law was angry at me the whole time. He even ran into a poor waiter the next night about how he gets treated like dirt by his son and daughter-in-law for simply voicing his concerns. He's also insisting that we should have had a mature conversation instead of mocking him and involving my son. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. What's gay about dancing? His concerns were ridiculous, and if he wanted a mature conversation, he should have had something mature to say. You can't have a mature conversation with a prejudiced fool, and he's the one who brought your son into it by showing off his bigotry in front of him. If you don't want to be treated like a fool, don't act like a fool. However, the husband's the one I'm frustrated with here. Bigot's gonna bigot, but your husband better decide whether he cares more about your son than keeping the peace for the bigot's sake. Your husband needs to step the heck up. The swearing is not what concerns me about the things father-in-law said in front of your son. Your husband is who I would be most upset with here, not father-in-law. You're not raising a kid with father-in-law. Your father-in-law just said he wouldn't care for your son in the same way if he was gay. Let's imagine 10 years from now, your son does have a crush on a boy and he's a bit on the feminine side. What would your husband do about his father? Also, mother-in-law sucks too. The only one who ruined the trip was her husband and she sides with him. She should have noticed his behavior and called him out on it instead of having her daughter-in-law be the one to do it. She's an enabler. I, 19 female, am currently 7 months pregnant with my first child and my boyfriend, 21, and I were really excited to celebrate with our family and friends at our baby shower last weekend. However, things didn't go exactly as planned. My boyfriend's family is pretty traditional and they weren't too happy that we were having a baby out of wedlock. They've been pretty distant and cold towards me since the announcement, but I thought the shower might be a chance for us to bond and put our differences aside. Boy, was I wrong. From the moment I arrived, my boyfriend's aunt made snide comments about my age and how young mothers never know what they're doing. Then his brother asked if I was planning on getting a job after the baby was born, implying that I would mooch off my boyfriend for the rest of my life or something. Things came to a head when my boyfriend's mom gave me a gift bag filled with baby clothes in all pink. When I politely pointed out that we were having a boy, she rolled her eyes and said, "Oh well, I just assumed that since you were so young, you probably don't know the gender of your own baby." At that point, I was done. I stood up and announced that I didn't feel welcome there and that I was leaving. My boyfriend tried to convince me to stay, but I was so upset that I just walked out. Now my boyfriend's family is calling me rude and ungrateful for storming out of my baby shower, but I feel like they were disrespectful to me. I'm especially hurt that my boyfriend's family thinks I can't even care for my own child. Am I the idiot for leaving? Not the idiot. OP, you didn't feel welcome because you weren't welcome. Also, oh well, I just assumed that since you're so young, you probably don't know the gender of your baby. That's the strangest dig I've ever heard. Young moms not knowing the gender of their babies is not a thing. Was she trying to imply that young moms are too poor or irresponsible to go to the OBGYN regularly? And if that's the case, this one is carrying your grandchild, so tell me how she's too poor to see a doctor and you don't think that's your problem. And why would she have assumed it was a girl? That's so idiotic to be honest. 50 to 50 chance of being publicly embarrassed by getting it wrong. Oh boy, it sounds like mother-in-law was starting the fireworks show off quite early. All of those digs and I'd be running out the door as well. Mommy dearest is mad she'll no longer be the center of her son's universe. I would have added, I guess you aren't interested in being a part of your grandchild's life. Too bad you don't know the rule about being kind to the mother if you want to see the baby. The fact that your boyfriend didn't tell his family to back down and stop treating you like crap is even worse than their behavior. Your boyfriend's family is idiots and I'm even considering him one since he didn't support you and stand up for you. While it might sound harsh, you need to have an immediate and serious conversation with your boyfriend about how he'll handle the situation going forward. If he's unwilling to immediately step up and advise his family to stop their crap and treat you respectfully, then you'd be very well advised to start preparing to be a single mother. Any person who would let their family treat their partner this way will not make a good parent. I, 26 male, am married to Freya, 25 female, and we're expecting a baby together. My sister-in-law, Molly, 24, is the golden child in my wife's family. My wife has mentioned that to me before and she doesn't speak to her parents very often or that sister for that matter. My experiences with Molly have been interesting to say the least. When I first met her, she asked me intrusive questions about intimacy, money, etc. We left because she wouldn't stop. She judged my dad for having me as a single dad by choice. That was after she called me a liar, insisted that I had a mom, and when she accepted that it was just my dad and me, she insisted I must have been adopted by him. She called me selfish and said that he was a bad father. All kinds of things. We left then too because she again would not stop saying that crap. She always believes she can tell people what to do and they should listen because she thinks she knows best about everything. Some other things she has said to me or argued with me over. She told me I should hate my dad for intentionally being a single dad. She said my dad was a stupid idiot who picked a dumb name for me. She told me I should demand the woman who gave birth to me should step up and be my mom. She told me I should change my name to James or Christopher and have a normal name. Freya and I became more distant from Molly when Molly seemed to seek us out just to share more of her wisdom with us. Then a few months ago, she reached out to Freya and said she had nobody else but their parents and how her friends had broken up with her by calling her names and saying she was insufferable. Freya was trying to see if she and Molly could be closer. She had Molly apologize to me and they were slowly building a relationship. Then several days ago, Molly asked what we were naming our baby. Freya said we weren't sharing it until the baby was born. She told us to name the baby Emily or Henry. She said that we shouldn't give the baby a dumb name like mine. Freya told her that we're not taking suggestions for names. She told me I shouldn't be like my dad. I should be better and not give our kid a dumb name. She brought up how her parents thought she had the best baby names. Freya told her she didn't care what their parents thought, that this was our baby and we would name them. Molly told Freya that she shouldn't discard their parents since they raised them and that she was always the wiser one and people need to listen to her more because she gives out good advice to people. Then she suggested my father had bad motives for having me alone and I snapped. I told her it was no wonder nobody liked her or wanted her around because she was a spoiled judgmental idiot and I was sick and tired of hearing her stupid advice because she was clueless. Molly burst into tears and called me an idiot. Freya laughed and told me it was what she was thinking. Molly sent a text to Freya afterwards saying that what I said was so mean. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. It is telling if Molly's friend can't even stand her anymore. Makes me wonder if her behavior with you and Freya is very common and nobody really likes her because of it. Stay away from her and her drama. I hope she learns her lesson someday or she's gonna face a lot of lonely times. Sometimes speech is silver but silence is golden. Your sister-in-law needs to learn that people don't need to know every thought rattling around in her head or how she feels that she's better than everyone else. I'm sorry but Molly won't change. If more people called her out on her behavior more often perhaps she'd have turned out less hateful and less unlovable, but it's too late to change her now. All you can do is avoid her. Don't let Molly in your home ever again and good teamwork with your wife here. I 19 male have two siblings AJ 24 male and Kaylee teen female. Our dad died when Kaylee was a baby. Our mom has worked hard ever since. She definitely has leaned a lot on AJ, and I try to help when I can alleviate that pressure. In spite of this, AJ has still taken on a lot of responsibility. Kaylee's pretty responsible, but she can't get up on time to save her life. She'll get up but then hit snooze. She's tried all the tricks. Alarm across the room, those apps on your phone where you have to solve math equations. She just won't get up. I think part of the problem is AJ will always wake her up. I've said that this isn't healthy. What happens when he moves out or goes to college? She's too old that she probably would learn if he didn't do this. My mom and AJ have said that there's nothing wrong with it, so I let it go. AJ's in grad school. He decided to crash at a friend's dorm one night as they attended a party. He told me to wake Kaylee up ahead of time as our mom goes to work early and I'm up at that time for work. I said he knew how I felt about this. He told me it wouldn't kill me and walked away. Yesterday morning I heard Kaylee's alarms as I got ready. I decided to let her learn and she was still sleeping. She takes the bus, so if she gets up within the next 15 minutes she'd be okay. Around 10 my cell rang. It's my mom freaking out. She got a call saying that Kaylee never showed up to school. I panicked momentarily, then remembered. I told my mom to check at home. Sure enough, Kaylee was at home still sleeping. My mom woke her up and took the rest of the day off. She had been terrified something terrible had happened. AJ blames me. Kaylee isn't mad, really just embarrassed, but AJ says I should have woken her up. I said she's a teen and it's a hard lesson. My mom isn't too upset, but she said that at a minimum I should have texted her to let her know Kaylee was still asleep when I left. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. She's old enough that the only person who should be responsible for getting her up is her. I've lived with several people who never learned how to get up independently because there's always someone who enables their poor behavior. I don't know if this stems from childhood or not. By the time I was 11 I had a paper route and I was getting up on my own for school and work. I'm to the point my body often wakes up on its own around the time I need, with or without a clock. I entertain some of these people, but it got old. It's frustrating and annoying having someone rely on you to get them up and then acting like idiots when you don't. You get them an atomic alarm clock. They sell them on Amazon. They have a decibel level of 80 plus and comes with a mattress vibrator to shake the bed as well. Everyone's the idiot here. AJ sucks for not asking you to wake her up. You suck for not telling everyone that you wouldn't do it. Your poor freaking mom for scaring her like that. You should definitely be ashamed of yourself. Kaylee sucks for not taking responsibility for her own actions. At her age she must have a medical condition that needs to be addressed, or she needs to grow the heck up. The only one who doesn't suck here is your overworked, stressed out mom. I disagree. OP didn't scare his mom. Her daughter didn't appear in school. She scared her mom herself. This is neither yours nor AJ's issue to deal with. Your sister's old enough to get herself up. Ultimately this is up to your mom to handle, not voiced off onto you guys. I also don't think you're the idiot for not sending a message to your mom. Will there ever be a time she won't rely on you and your brother to be a mother? If this story touched your heart, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with others who might need to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss a new story. We'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, I have a truly heart-wrenching yet uplifting story to share with you. Imagine being abandoned with a baby and no money, only to have a chance encounter with a stranger turn your life around. This is the story of "My husband left me with a baby and no money, then I met a stranger who changed everything." Let's dive right in and see how one woman's life was transformed in the most unexpected way. Dorothy stood in the kitchen and thoughtfully washed the kettle for about 10 minutes, thinking about when all this would end and how she would get out of this situation. She felt that she no longer believed in her marriage, and it depressed her more and more, and how well it had all started. Nathan was courting her romantically and charmingly. He serenaded her under the windows, gave her flowers every day, and always different ones, until he had realized that she loved orchids most of all, and after that he gave them only. And Dorothy thought then that it would be like that forever, maybe without orchids, but certainly with Nathan next to her. Soon Nathan asked Dorothy to be his wife, and she immediately agreed. She seemed to glow with happiness at the wedding, and Nathan kept whispering his vows of eternal love to her. They lived in Nathan's apartment that his parents had presented to him a few years ago. The apartment was next to the office where Dorothy and her college friend Sharon had been working as designers for 3 years. True, Sharon soon got married too, and moved in with her husband to a neighboring city. Dorothy liked the apartment. The only thing that annoyed her was that one of the 2 rooms was filled with musical instruments. Nathan was a musician and a bandleader, but they had no success, and their performances brought no money. Everything Nathan could earn outside musical activities was usually spent on rehearsals and transportation of equipment. At first Dorothy's domestic problems did not bother her, as she was working and had enough money, but then, giving birth to a child, Dorothy immersed herself in home life and felt how much she missed Nathan's help. He was always away at rehearsals, dealing with some band issues and coming home late, almost always drunk. Dorothy longed to feed him dinner and just talk, but she did not want to be a capricious and grumpy wife, and she said nothing. One day, after her son was born, she asked Nathan to go for a walk with little Spencer, as she wanted to sleep for at least half an hour and get some rest. But her husband just looked at her in surprise and irritably said, these are your responsibilities, Dorothy. I can't do all this nonsense. Do you want me to become a well-known musician or not? And then Dorothy clearly understood that nothing was going to change, and it wasn't because he hadn't given her orchids for a long time. Nathan had changed a lot, and he didn't care about her and Spencer. Dorothy was ready for one last conversation with her husband. But disaster struck. Her mother died of an illness. After the funeral, Dorothy fell into a stupor and depression. Nathan started bringing orchids again, and Dorothy even thought that in this way he was trying to support her, but as it turned out, it was something else entirely. Soon, Nathan started talking about selling her mother's apartment. He offered to use the proceeds to buy a minibus, which he planned to use to go to rehearsals and tours. Dorothy almost laughed, because her husband had never been away for performances beyond the local clubs, but she didn't argue, and they bought the car and put the rest of the money in the bank. But of course, everything went on as before. Spencer started teething, and Dorothy could not sleep at night, listening to the moans of her baby, and Nathan was often absent at such nights. But his band performances did not add money to the house, and they lived, in fact, only on the children's allowance. One day the telephone rang, and Dorothy was overjoyed to hear the cheerful voice of her friend. Sharon reported that she and her husband would soon be going on vacation abroad, and she tearfully asked Dorothy to stay in their home and look after Rocky the Spaniel. Dorothy was happy, because she had longed for a change of scenery, at least for a while. She shared her worries with Sharon, and her friend said firmly, "That's it, it's settled. Come to us with Spencer, I'll be back from vacation, we'll figure it out. Maybe you do not have to go back to your husband. Stay here, find a job and you can live with us while you need. The house is big." And Dorothy made up her mind. She hastily stuffed some of her things and Spencer's clothes into the suitcase, took her documents and driver's license. She left Nathan a note explaining that she was leaving for good and would file for divorce. While Dorothy was putting the baby seat in the car, she realized that it was getting dark and cold outside. She drove to a gas station on the outskirts of the city, filled a full tank, but a few dozens of kilometers away, the car stalled. Realizing they would not make it to the nearest settlement on foot, Dorothy tried to call, but as luck would have it, there was no connection in the area. Then she tried to give signs to passing cars honking and flashing their lights, but no one stopped. 2 hours passed. It was deep into the night and the highway was completely deserted. But then the lights of a car appeared in the distance. Dorothy ran out onto the road in despair and waved her hands. The jeep stopped next to the woman and a man got out. He tried to find out what was wrong, but Dorothy was so cold and tired that she could hardly speak. From her confused story, he only understood that they were going to the same city, that her car had broken down for some reason, and that the baby was freezing in it. "Okay, let's do this. Get your things and the baby and his car seat out of the car and come over to my car. Don't worry, we are in the same direction anyways. I'll take you where you need to be, and tomorrow you can call a tow truck, which will take your car to the station." Dorothy immediately agreed. The prospect of freezing in the car together with the baby really frightened her. Already in the car, the man introduced himself as Gregory. He told her that he was going to his parents, who lived in the same city as her friend. His father had opened a new branch in that city while he was in charge of the old one. The man smiled and added good-naturedly that his parents would probably be the best people on earth if they didn't torture him with their desire to marry him quickly. "Better not rush into it," Dorothy blurted out. Gregory was surprised and cautiously asked, "Excuse me, are you speaking from your own experience?" And Dorothy suddenly felt completely unashamed to tell the stranger about everything, and that her dreams of family happiness had crashed on daily life, and that she had to flee from her husband from her hometown, and that everything began with a great love. Gregory listened to her thoughtfully, and for a while they drove in silence. "Dorothy, can you help me?" he suddenly asked. "You saved us today. I owe you one. Tell me what can I help you with, and I'll see what I can do." And Gregory told Dorothy that once upon a time he had had a girlfriend, but she had left him for a richer businessman from Greece. Then his parents decided to introduce him to a woman who worked at his father's company. She, in their opinion, was pretty and nice, with good moral principles. But Gregory flatly refused, and now they remind him again and again of the need to get married. And so Gregory had a brilliant, in his opinion, plan, in order to make them at least temporarily leave him alone. Gregory suggested Dorothy to go together to his parents and play the role of his bride in front of them. Dorothy at first wanted to give 4, but remembered she owed him a debt of gratitude. So she just smiled and agreed. "All right, Gregory, but only tomorrow, because then my friend, whom I am driving to, is leaving for vacation, and I will have no one to leave my baby with, and I don't think your parents would like a bride with a baby from another man. I'm sure my parents wouldn't be upset if the bride had a child, but in any case, thank you for agreeing. Then I invite you to dinner at our place tomorrow evening." When Gregory picked up Dorothy the next evening, she met him in readiness. He looked at her admiringly and assured her that her parents were definitely like her looks and kind disposition. Dorothy laughed and promised to talk less so as not to give herself away. When Gregory introduced Dorothy to his parents, he was speechless at how warmly they greeted her. It turned out that Dorothy was the same woman who worked in his father's company and whom the parents knew well and predicted for their son as a bride. When Dorothy returned home, Sharon questioned her about everything, and learning that Gregory was the son of their common boss, her friend gave free rein to her fantasies and told Dorothy how things would go on if, of course, she would not hide her feelings. Well, I see that you like Gregory and managed to notice, though he has been with us for a short time, that he likes you too. Now stop living in the past or punishing yourself for being wrong about Nathan. You're staying with us, getting a divorce and coming to work for my boss, who may soon become your father-in-law. We'll put Spencer in kindergarten here and everything will be fine. We're all going to bed now. We have an early flight tomorrow, but I will constantly be in touch to be updated on how your relationship is progressing, said Sharon and winked conspiratorially to her friend. And events did develop rapidly, and almost as Sharon predicted. Gregory visited Dorothy every day, and one day finally confessed his feelings to her. And when Dorothy also confessed her feelings in return, Gregory put her and her son in a car and took them to his parents. Dorothy was anxious that they would take the fact that she was not alone and with a child. But when Gregory's mother came up to them, Dorothy was relieved of heart. Well, hello, little one. I'm your new grandmother, she said amiably and held out her arms to Spencer. Dorothy couldn't believe what was happening. She thought this only happened in the movies, but it wasn't a movie. It was her new happy life, in which there was no place for Nathan. By the way, a year later, she somehow saw a report about her ex-husband. But not about the famous musician, but about the drunken hooligan who burst onto the stage and disrupted the concert of a famous band. Apparently this was the popularity he had dreamed of, but he made his own choice. If you enjoyed this story and felt as moved by it as I did, please give this video a thumbs up, share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories. Hit the bell icon to stay updated with our latest content. Thanks for watching.